costuming for the punks because he was the son of the production designer or costume designer or friend of that. So you really low budget movie. They were just expecting a movie they could make $3 million probably, right?
Yeah,
in the theaters.
They probably weren't expecting it to actually make, 16.7 mil.
Yeah.
And it really did explode, especially at the time. And it was such a relatable film. It's Romeo and Juliet. Everyone can relate to that story. So, and you had, actors and actresses that weren't really well known. They were all TV actors. So, and then of course we have Nicolas Cage.
18 years
freshly
old.
18 according to the commentary.
18 years old.
Insane. And he's so good. And and she even pointed out like how he does with his improv, like the whole with them driving down the road and he's like shouting things at people. And it's really interesting to see like how his genius actually works. I mean, of course, we all know Nicolas Cage now for all the ridiculous movies. And of course, him going in every movie that he does. But if you think about it, it's quite genius what he does, and it's really hard to keep up that level of mentality for as long as you do it. And it shows with Valley Girl, with everything he does. They gave him a lot of improv to do. He was given open range to do what he wants. Even the small things. What was it? She talks about was like when he's not wearing his shirt at the beach, and she said like he was apparently, even though he was the youngest one, he was the hairiest one. She said that she was like, well, just clean yourself up a little bit. So he shaves like a
Superman.
Superman
V on his chest.
He does. And it became very symbolic because then that's whenever you saw more of these beach shows coming out and they all wanted to do that because it looked cool.
And just 18 years old, Deborah Foreman was on this. Did you hear what her manager, her manager wanted her to get this movie, but her manager did something shicey. She's like, listen, Debbie has a movie filming in France. We need to get this movie. So if you don't say yes immediately, Debbie Foreman's going to France to make a movie called, Les Jantés, Fudu Fafa.
Merlot.
Yeah. And so, Flight of the Conchords, I wasn't doing a French horrible, I was quoting him. But, so they were like, okay, we'll bring her in. And these two actually started dating per the commentary for a while.
Yeah, he actually had a real crush on her. He would send her poetry.
And they said, American Girl or something. He wrote American something. He wrote a poem for her. Isn't that like?
Yeah, that's really cute. And it shows in their acting back and forth. I mean, you could tell there was real chemistry between the two. They were really quite adorable with each other.
That breakup scene, she's really crying. They couldn't do it, and so
it was so hard. It's so heartbreaking because it's like he's really confused, and it's like how are you going to do this to him? He's so sweet and so nice to you, and it's because your friends don't approve of him. That they approve of Michael Bowen, who's like a massive jerk in the movie, and it's like, well, he's like the cool guy, and don't you want to be like best friends with all of us? And she's like, yeah, I guess. So she sides with them, and it's like, oh no. And he's I love that the scene where he's cursing at her. Then he's like, F off, like totally for sure.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna get our PG-13 rating, but he's walking away and he goes, fuck off for sure, like totally. But it's
a great line.
And she was crying though. She was legit crying in that scene, like because they were together, they were dating, I guess. And also, what I like about this movie, so, all right, Apocalypse Now. It's weird to combine these two, but Apocalypse Now was Coppola, and she was associated with Coppola through Zoetrope, who produced Godfather, Lost in Translation, and all those. Apocalypse Now used 1.5 million feet of film. 1.5 million feet.
God damn.
This movie only had 60,000. So they only remember she said the director's cut only had about
she said everything that they shot was in the movie, but I think she said at the most there might be 30 seconds extra.
So they shot, that's crazy. So they allowed improv, but they didn't, it had to be within the scene. It couldn't be like a Judd Apatow.
They couldn't just be like, okay, let's see it again. Let's see it again. Now say it with ketchup or something. They couldn't do that. It was like, but if he rattled something off, like she's like, say something insulting, and he says, F off, like totally for sure. And then it's like, okay, well, that's good.
We can't use any more film. They were worried too. They're like, we're going to run out of film.
Of course.
And I also like that I'm actually going to teach this to my class. They had such a low budget, she storyboarded almost everything. And so when they went to shoot, I mean, they had to go real low budget, but they had an idea of everything they had to shoot. And so they saved a lot of money by prep and rehearsal. And I thought, I don't know, I love... All right, so
they did the same thing with the Reanimator. They rehearsed it. I think it was like for about 2 weeks before they actually filmed it. Which if you listen to the commentary on Reanimator, he explains this, that they wanted to rehearse it all like one big play. So that way, when they actually showed up, and they should do this with more movies, in my opinion. I mean, of course, budgeting and, getting schedules to work out, you probably can't really do that with people with bigger names. But they rehearsed it like one big play, and then they rehearsed it right there on set, and then shot it, and then that was it. It was just like, there you go. Much money. And then not only that, what makes it even more intense is that they open up for improv. Yeah. It's like, how could you like do that with improv too? But it worked great.
They do that on the Edgar Wright sets. I don't know if did you get to work on Baby Driver? I wasn't available to work on that.
I wasn't able to work on it.
Oh no, that was, we were on something else. But yeah, so they, on that movie, this is off target, so whatever, but Edgar Wright, when he makes a movie, when they get the set, when they start shooting, everything is in the script. Like they don't change anything on the day, but they do extensive rehearsals. And if improv comes out of those rehearsals, like you said, then they can add that in there because they figured it out in rehearsing.
That makes a lot of sense to be able to do that, because that way it looks more fresh and more real. But you're still following the script.
And since you told me about this movie, I want you to tell the audience what the studio executives said during their first screening of this movie. What did they look at Martha Coolidge and say? Do you remember that?
Oh, I forget what she said. She said like they liked it or something.
Yeah, they're like, you made a real movie.
Yeah. That's what she said. They said you made a real movie.
And they took full page billboards, full page in New York and LA. They put billboards up. They tried to sell it. Isn't that awesome though?
Yeah.
Here's 300,000. We need 4 boobs. We'll make 2 million on it, whatever. And then they watch it and they go, you made a real movie. Isn't that pretty cool? Like,
yeah, I love that. And I mean, she's quite happy with it, obviously.
I just bet those guys were high-fiving each other. And you know what's interesting? Martha Coolidge, she also said she borrowed money from her parents during the filming of these 20 days. And the DP, Frederick Elms, what I love is, we actually talked about this with the guests where the Adam Wingard's like, I hate being on set. Frederick was like, it was a nightmare. He's like, I don't even know how I stayed awake. It was 20 hours every day because we shot in 20 days. So this was like a tough film to shoot in those 20 days. But they kept the budget down and did a great job.
They must have been recycling a lot of extras, especially for the party scenes.
Yeah, they must have.
They had been like, okay, well then you're good. Go
Cast and crew, like boyfriends of the, anybody who's on there, boyfriend, girlfriends. Also, I know you heard this in the commentary, but I love in the beginning when you watch it. So I knew nothing about this movie when I first watched it. Really, I didn't know how popular it was. I knew Martha Coolidge from Real Genius. So I watched this movie, and the heavy valley speak in the beginning was just, I was like, Elizabeth Daily, who we all know as Tommy Pickles, and Froggy from Little Rascals. But she didn't really know how to talk like that. So she just kind of like mimicked whatever she thought. And then they went to certain malls and listened to what people would say. And then she just kind of morphed it in her own, like, oh my God, guide me with a spoon. Yeah. And some real big quotes came from that. And you know what I thought was interesting, what Coolidge did is that they started really heavy in the beginning with the valley speak. So you're like, oh, okay, I get it. But then they're like, we couldn't do that the whole shoot. So they went really heavy in the beginning, and then they dialed it back throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. So when they added it in, you were used to that kind of vibe. That's really interesting, maybe, not subconscious, just load you up front really heavy with it. So you're like, holy crap, this is the world. And then they kind of weaned back.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they did it throughout the entire film, it would be a nightmare.
I'd be screaming. Exactly. Stop!
And I guess probably Elizabeth Daily was like the predominant character that would talk like that. So then her character didn't become as dominant as she was in the beginning. Like, she kind of feathers out. But then again, the movie's not about her. It's about Nick Cage and Deborah Foreman.
And I love the line where in the beginning, so she's dating Tommy, the pop collar guy who likes to eat her sandwiches.
He was like our age.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. But I love
such a contrast between the other people.
He was a big dude. But I love, she's like, Tommy can be such a dork. His brains are bad news. And then they're like, he is bitching. I'm becoming to think I'm an old chair. Like, you're just
totally grody.
Yeah. Like, in the beginning though, you're like, wow, this is a lot. But it's pretty interesting that in the beginning she breaks up with Tommy and then you know what I like about this movie too is why I think it works is that the side characters, like the parents, let's see, what is her name?
Who came from Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, who came from Apocalypse Now. Her parents, so Julie's parents, Sarah and Steve, they're the opposite of the normal 80s parents. Like, come back next Tuesday and it's a Friday.
Hey man, we remember the 60s, man. Remember he blows out his water buffaloes and he's like, did I get these at Woodstock or was this the March on Washington?
Yeah.
It's like, you were right the first time, honey, and it was 14 years ago.
Because you wanted comfortable shoes.
Yeah, you're going to do a lot of walking.
He's like, oh yeah, but you have.
I love how they do a health food store.
Oh yeah,
just like the customers that were in there are really funny too. And he's like, I don't know who this Randy guy is, man, but I think he's bad news. And then the customer's like eating the vegan burger, and he's like, maybe I should talk to her.
He's like, we got some new stuff. You can stop by. And also you have Susie and her stepmom Beth, who both like skip. Then you have Tommy and that really...
That's a great little side story. Yeah, I love that. That's a great little side thing. And then like the whole scene, like whenever they're having sex and it's like, who is actually the one having sex? Because stepmom opens up the door and it's like, oh my gosh.
And then Martha Coolidge goes, that's our fourth. And then also, you just have Tommy. You have that really awkward scene that he has with that girl where she's like, are we going together? It's like, no. But if you tell anybody, the ex-boyfriend,
she's like, well, that's really shitty what you're doing. Yeah. And he's like, I don't know what's worse, like the fact that you're a shitty friend taking advantage of me. And it's like, I like how she put that in there about how certain guys just treat women like complete garbage.
She said that was her most proud point.
That was a great moment. I love that part because it's like, yeah, that guy.
Tommy.
I was about to say the F-bomb. So.
Yeah, we already got our PG-13.
That guy's a shithead. Yeah. He's a terrible human being. And it's like, I like how, she showed that, but her friend doesn't want to say like, well, how do you know he's such a shitty person? And what's she going to say? Like, he ate your French fries. Yeah. And it's like, well, or she going to say, I almost had sex with him. Or, come on.
You can't say anything.
You can't. I mean, what are you going to say? And I love that, how she put that in there in that movie. And then at the end where he gets his just desserts, quite literally.
Cake fight. But she did some other really smart things too, where Tommy starts eating Julie's food when they get back together.
Yeah.
Martha said she hated that. Yeah, I hate this. And then the other scene where
you see that in Deborah's face too. She's like, "What are you doing?"
And that was just a cheese. That was a bun with a piece of cheese on it. There was no meat.
Well, that's where that 300,000 comes from.
Exactly.
Budget cuts hit everybody, Mark.
And then you go to a restaurant, can I have a burger without the burger? So like, can I pay $2?
Can I get a condiment sandwich?
Yeah, exactly. And then I like the scene where they go to the club with Nick Cage and his buddy.
That was the Viper Room.
The Viper Room, which is crazy.
It was it was called Filthy McNasty's, but then it was turned into the Central whenever they shot it there. And then it was bought by Johnny Depp later on, called the Viper Room.
They're looking at Julie and just telling her how life is. So you have many instances of.
I love how. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
You can just tell how. I know this. Like you could just tell a woman directed it. Like it doesn't have the dudes wouldn't have thought about that, especially making this movie.
Yeah. I love how she put that, they're giving, the guys are giving the girls shit and the girls give it right back to them. Cause they're just like, when she says, well, it's not so much what we do, it's like we do things differently. Yeah. And it's like, but we're the same. Like she's like, basically like, you look just like your friend. What are you talking about? It's like, yes, of course. And it's like, great. That's a great line. And she gives it right back to them.
Yeah, it was refreshing to watch. I guess I didn't know what to expect from this movie at all.
It's not I don't know, like, it's not like a typical romantic comedy where it's not like, the man is overpowered. He doesn't look like the hero except for at the end. And, he gets his ass whooped in the beginning.
Yeah. Tommy destroys him. But
he beats the hell out of him.
Tommy,
but it's like.
Tommy would, though. That's because he's 35.
He has plenty of time to practice jujitsu.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he gets rocked. And I also like how Nick Cage was casted. Remember, they were trying to bring in a ton of pretty boys.
Yeah, and she says that in the commentary, she says that she didn't like the pretty boys, and she picks up the first person who was on the rejected pile was Nicolas Cage. She says, I want a guy that looks like this. And then they bring him in for the interview, and Nicolas Cage is saying like, oh, well, I'm actually shooting a movie called Rumblefish right now. So she's like, well, I know Francis, so I'm going to call him and ask him.
Francis Ford Coppola.
And she says, she talks to him and says, do you have a Nicolas Cage over there? Because I really want to use him for my movie Valley Girl. And he goes, no, but we have my nephew, Nicky Coppola. And she's like, aha. So then she started doing a little bit more research on Nicolas Cage. You can read and hear about this, but on Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which was the movie, I think it was still in the process of being coming out at that point. He was supposed to have because this is 1983, so 1982, so it would have been still in it may actually have been in theaters. I don't know.
Yeah, right about then.
He was supposed to have a much bigger role, but apparently he was a massive pain in the ass to work with. They even say this in the commentary that he was like walking around. He was like 17. So, yeah. I mean, come on. What 17-year-old isn't a pain in the ass? So he was saying like, oh, well, I'm going to be famous. Like my uncle's Francis Coppola, the Godfather. No. And they're all like, Sean Penn's like, oh, okay, yeah. dick. And, you know, like Eric Stoltz is like sitting there like, oh, you're an asshole, you know, F you.
Judge Reinhold beats him up.
Judge Reinhold. What happened to that guy?